I believe we're live,
We're
man.
live.
Happy Wednesday night, everyone. And tonight it's going to be SEMA and PRI Tech Talk. You guys are going to get an inside scoop to all the stuff. I have the brochure here of everything that's coming out per Edelbrock. And we have the bringer of the No Name Nationals, Mr. John Wilburn, with us tonight.
Howdy, everyone.
Yeah, Dallas couldn't be here tonight. He's got some stuff going on. So John was gracious enough to step in.
Yeah.
So as we go through, we're going to be talking about all the stuff that's in our brand new products for 2024. Obviously, you're not going to get that on any other channel here because I kind of got a little insight. I just happened to work there. There's another tech talk going on right now, but they don't have anything like this. It's actual work that's going out, that's going to be produced. So and sold out to you guys. So with we're going to get right into it. We're going to, because this is going to be kind of a long one. We'll try to. And Mr. John Wilburn was first. And
who all's in here?
Yeah, we got Dan, we got Mr. Clint, we got Buff Del Campo, Twisted Mopar Garage, we got David, Schweers and Gears, that's Bicycle 111. I now know that. We got Mopar Man 1978, Turbo Tom, Slant Daily with Sup Supers, and I messed that up, so I had to go Sup Suckers. All right. The wifey's in here with Bueno. Yet warmed up the coffee after getting cold in the shop. Doing well. Good. Awesome. Geez, Mr. Clint. We got Fab. We got Tall Garage. Oh, Tall Garage, please don't go anywhere because I got something for you, sucker. We got Lout and we got Clint. We got Dust Devil and Tall. Everyone's in here right now as people are coming in. Oh, special guest. Yeah, Dust Devil Garage. We got Mr. John Wilburn in here tonight. And tonight is going to be all about PRI and SEMA. Are you going to make it to SEMA or PRI this? Actually, PRI this year, John?
You know, I hadn't even thought about it with what all's going on. Never rule anything out, but I hadn't planned on it.
Yeah.
Dallas is not going. I know you're going to be there early.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna go. I'm actually going with the crew because I got a lot of stuff coming out. So
Right.
I'm gonna be up there on Wednesday night is when we're gonna get there, and then we're gonna do the hobnob, and then Thursday we're gonna I'll be walking around checking out the industry stuff, and then Friday we're gonna be driving back. So
right on.
Yeah. As we got Tech Talk coming in, nothing really. So now, while we're kind of waiting for people to come in here, we'll do Mr. Bicycle Guy 111. This is Cole, aka Bicycle Guy 111. He wanted to know if he can get some advice on live streams. He was talking about a hydraulic roller cam for a D-stroked small block Chevrolet. So it's a 380 cubic inch small block 400 with the 3.5 stroke in it. He's about 10-to-1 compression, equipped with a tunnel ram, ported factory double hump head style, going in a 40 Chevy with a 700 R4 390 gear. So now a 700 R4 has got a really steep first gear as it is, plus a 390 gear. So that thing's really going to get out of its own weight right off the bat. He's looking for street use, maybe 8th mile for fun only. Thanks. Also are some pictures of my 58 VW Bug with a 2332. So he sent up some pictures. You would like it, John. It's actually it's good stuff. So I actually have right here on my little phone here some cam specs for you that I will tell you. And here we go. Where are they at? Okay, here it is. Let's see if I can open this up. Oh, now it's a PDF. I don't know if it will open it up. Say open. Yeah, always just open it up. Okay, so what you're looking for on that is we're going to classify that, even though it's going to be slightly different. We're going to look at it as about 383 cubic inch. Obviously it's going to be a smaller stroke, but you're going to be going with probably a little longer rod, so it can withstand a little bit of camshaft in this thing. So duration at 50, you're going to want to be in that 230 on the intake, 235 on the exhaust. Now this is where you're going to get into preference as far as lobe separation angle. 110 is going to talk to you. It's going to have less vacuum, so if you're going to have vacuum brakes, I definitely wouldn't recommend that. I put on a 112. If it's something that you're going to have manual brakes, I put on a 110. It's not really going to hurt that tunnel ram at all, and that big cubic inch of that small block is definitely going to eat it up. As far as lift go, it's really not that important. I would just lift it to wherever the cylinder head stopped flowing, and just slightly above that, about 10 thousandths, because by the time you get RPM, you're going to get a little deflection and whatnot. So yeah, that's where I would be, is 230, 235. I would put that on, like I said, on a 110 if you have manual brakes, a 112 if you have vacuum brakes. Now, even on a 112, it's definitely going to talk to you, but it's going to spread it out just enough so that way it doesn't boogity so much. You're still going to be probably in about the 12 inches of vacuum range with that. So it's still going to be fun. Let's put it that way. It won't be tame or mellow by any means. So what I'll do is I'm going to send you back an email, but I figured we could just do that one live right there on the air. So there you go, bud.
I like that build, by the way, using the iron heads with the tunnel ram.
Oh,
big
yeah.
bore, short stroke. I like the cool build. I like that.
Yeah, and it's gonna talk to you too, man. That tunnel ram on that thing, and the reason why I went a little bigger on the camshaft is because he has a ton of gear. Plus, he's going to have that low ratio, that 306 first gear and that 700 R4.
That's a 306 in that.
Yeah, 700
R4. That's like a manual, and then you add a torque converter.
And then you add a torque converter on it, so that way you can run a lot of converter on it, because with the low ratio gears is actually going to act like a smaller stall. But then when you go to second gear is a big spread, then you're on the converter, so you get like double the magic.
What is second in that?
I believe they're 154. I believe. Okay. I have it all. I have it all written down, but someone will correct me. But
that's a lot of launch.
It is a lot of launch, and that's the reason why they use that a lot in the trucks, is to get the weight moving. You know, that's why they can get the tow ratings on those things.
I see Andy and Colleen have slid in here, and
nice.
And I like this question by Val0360 Jimmy there. That's an interesting one.
Okay, let's get up there. Sorry, I was reading. Hi, boys.
Never even thought about that before.
Does the length of line matter when using a remote oil filter? Aussie Mopars need to run a remote filter, because yes, it actually does. Because anytime you're moving fluid, you're moving weight. So, you know, you get a benefit of it, because usually on, say, let's just take a slant 6, for instance. The reason why I like to run them on slant 6 is because the filter now, instead of being upside down where it can drain out, you can actually put them up. You can run 2 of them. So you're usually not having a dry start, but you are going to add a little bit of resistance, because whenever you're moving something, you're moving weight. And that's the trade-off. Do you want instant type of oil pressure, or do you want the added weight? Well, the biggest type of problem that you're going to have on the engine is a dry startup, is when it's cold, because there's really no oil pressure and the oil's thick and whatnot. So I will take the extra weight, the extra pressure that it takes to move that against it, but it's negligible. You'll I mean, obviously, if you're running from, like, say, an engine to like a fender or whatnot, but if you're running it from the front of the car all the way to the back, and it also matters too if you're running it forward, because when you're pumping it forward, obviously you're going to have it coming back, you know, against, as far as force when you're accelerating, but it's going to equal itself out, but you're still pushing it forward, and then it's still going to be coming back, but you still have to push it. So it does matter. You can just do the math. You can just take the inside diameter, know the specific gravity of the oil, and then you can just see how much does it take to move that. It's kind of simple, and it's really easy math. If you want, you can actually just give me the diameter of the line, where it's going, how far is it going up from where it's being pumped, because that makes a difference too. Is it going sideways? Is it going forward and backwards? Just give me those numbers, and then I can calculate it for you.
And Dennis, Twisted Mopar Garage brings up a good point. I'd be more worried about oil cavitation.
Yes.
I'm in that camp too. I'm far more worried about keeping the systems happy, and that little bit of extra weight is negligible in my opinion.
Yeah, and that oil cavitation does happen if you are pushing too far to go, because there's too much weight on the one end, on the one side. If you're pushing it too far out and too far back, you can get a pressure drop. It's just like with electricity, when anytime you have any type of flow that over a distance, there's going to be at the very end, there's going to be a problem. That's the reason why I try to backfeed things from different directions so that way you don't have as much
Two
pressure drop.
two things I'll grab here. One, Max Wedge Dick Dastardly is doing some testing on why YouTube makes it hard for him to be visible in chats. Max Wedge Dick Dastardly, I'm on StreamYard, so it won't matter. So I can't test with you on that, but I'll be happy to help you sometime if you want. And Colleen has got a good question about gear ratios here. She's
Why am I
asking,
not seeing any of this stuff?
yeah, Colleen at
Oh,
809.
there it is. Got it.
Question on ratios in autos and manuals similar? No, they're really not, and it's because the automatic has a torque converter.
That's right. That's why they only have less gears usually.
Right, they'll usually have less because you're multiplying the torque and you're getting back the torque with a lesser ratio of the gear. Typically, you'll have steeper ratios in a manual.
Yeah, and typically you'll have like lower numerical gears for first gear on usually in first for converter because you can be on the converter and that's where the magic happens.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Here,
But by
question.
the way, those gear ratios you have posted for your 5-speed, the ratios are freaking awesome.
Yeah.
That's a wheels up launch, and it's 80 on the highway, what you've got there. And it's actually a pretty good spread because you're spreading it over 5 instead of 4. However, I can't vouch for how durable that is. So,
yeah. What transmission? Yeah. What transmission is that in?
I think it's an AX5, like the Jeeps have.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But for your application, I think it'll be a winner.
Yeah, exactly. Clint Sasson, question: because downleg boosters, would the AVS2 work better on a tunnel ram than a classic 1400 series? Yes, downleg boosters give a better signal. Let's put it that way. Puts it down closer into the venturi, and it just works better. So yes, the AVS2 would work in that application better. But remember, it's only going to be on the primaries because the secondaries just have a standard type of. On that. Actually, what I would do is I would run the VRS in that application because the VRS kicks butt, man. That thing's awesome. It's got downlink boosters on it. Plus, it's just an all around awesome carburetor. So
I'm anxious to see the VRS on the tunnel ram. I haven't seen it yet, but I bet it's going to really work cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So today's Tech Talk, we're going to be talking about all the new products coming out in the 2024 new products for the Edelbrock Group. I just happen to work there, and I work in the engineering department. So your guys, all this stuff dropped out basically just yesterday. So we're going to be here talking about it. I have a whole list of notes, and I kind of give John a quick overview of kind of what we're going to be talking about. And what we're going to do is we're going to start. We'll start in because I already know what the main topic is going to be on some of these. So I'll kind of glance over some of these. But the biggest thing for Russell, I'll start off with this one, is that they're going to have some new fuel filters. These are going to be basically the Pro Filter 2s. And what's nice about these is that they go all the way up to dash 16. And when I say dash 16, I mean dash 16. And what's nice about these is that they come in 10, 40, and 100 microns. And we ran these things, and as far as pressure drop, there is almost no pressure drop. It is less than a half of a pound of pressure drop across this at max flow. And we tried to overflow this one with the dash 16, and we had 2 pumps running to it, and this thing was just wanted more. I have one of this style dash 10 on the Cookie Monster, so it works awesome. And not only do we have it in this style, but we also have it in the smaller style dash 6, and same thing, they come apart on both sides, O-ringed. And what's nice, have you ever tried to take off one of these things and it's not a size that fits anything? Have you ever tried to notice that, John?
Usually when it's rounded, though.
Well, the beautiful thing about these is that it fits the A in wrench. So like the 16 fits the 16. So if you've ever done this before, you have to go. It's not like an inch and a half or an inch and an eighth or anything metric. It's literally a crescent wrench at that point. These were made so that way it fits.
Nice.
So
It's very nice.
yeah, and so they have, and then they have. Keep getting hung up on that. We have new wrenches coming out for the Russell line. These things are awesome. They're T7. I mean, everyone's got them, but here's what the big thing that we have on those is this is the adjustable wrench. Now, what's awesome about the adjustable wrench is that it's from -3 to -16. So one adjustable wrench. Plus, with the way the worm gear works, it's got an integral spring in it. So that way, like on a crescent wrench, when you go forward, there's like that slack on it. There is none on this thing.
Nice.
Yes, exactly. So when you put it on there, you don't start to torque on it and then it opens up that little bit. No, it doesn't do that at all. It's actually really badass. And then obviously they sell the replacement filters, and you can get them in the 75 and the 76 series, and they come in 10, 40, and 100 microns. And they're all stainless steel, all cleanable. It's really, I'm telling you, it just doesn't get any better than that stuff.
Dust Devil Brian has one question about it. Does it come in purple? And I have a question about it, which is, how does the surface area on that filter compare if you were to take a regular inline filter and were to cut it apart? Because it looks like a lot more.
Oh yeah, the pleats.
I mean, a lot more.
Yes, and that's the whole thing too. Is that whenever you move fluid through pleats, these pleats are massive. I can probably tear this one.
I mean, that's what I was looking at.
Yeah, they're massive and they're deep, right?
Yes.
So you're adding massive amounts of surface area. Plus, look at how many pleats there are. So when you unfold this thing, it's literally like having this surface area, and it's like 5 more times the surface area because of how much there is. And that's the reason why you can cut down on the pressure drop. And like I've said before, if you can get something to go slow through a cooler, slower through a filter, you don't lose. You actually gain some of the filtering characteristics of it, and that's where you don't lose the pressure drop, because you're moving it slowly. It's not being forced through. Whenever you are putting pressure to something, it loses it. So
Lout Burns, Joe would run one that was screaming yellow or neon green or pink if the price was right. Joe is thrifty like that.
Honestly, I believe it is a black only thing on this one.
Hey, it works.
I believe, and I don't think, but you know what? Who says you can't get anything purple? You know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah. And as far as cost on these, I don't have any idea on the cost on this stuff. Really, I don't. I just help design it. I don't keep track of that stuff. I'm sorry. Was there any questions that were asking while I was going through this?
Not particularly. Ask if it came in purple, but
no purple.
I do. That's a worthy product. I like that.
Yeah. And then
where do you prefer to mount a filter?
I have a pre and an aft. So I have a pre-filter, and then I have one after, and I like to run obviously like 100 micron, something like this, but obviously maybe I have a -10 going into, well, actually I have 2 -10s, which are like this going into it, and they're like 100 microns. So basically it's just to take the big stuff out. Then it goes through the pump, and then I have like one of these where this is going to be, now this is just a 40 because this is all I could get, to take apart. But I'd put something like this that's a 10 micron after. That will get all the particulates out. If it's a carbureted car, I could usually do with a 40. Fuel injection, I would go with the 10. So that's what I got on that. Next, we're going to move on. Any questions on that one? Nope.
I do see Heaven's Mopar says clear would be cool. I'm nervous about clear. Anything that'll break like that. I went to metal fuel filters forever ago. I've seen black ones crack. I've seen plastic ones crack and cause engine fires.
And glass ones break.
And glass will break.
And the O-rings will leak eventually, especially on that glass.
To me, I don't mess with that at all. I don't even particularly like rubber fuel hose. I especially would not want a clear filter for that reason.
Yeah, I changed everything to a steel one, and the steel filters are like $4. And when you're
Right.
driving an older car, I just whenever I do an oil change, I just change the fuel filter. It's an extra $4, big
Yeah.
deal. At that point, you're getting away with a car payment. You can afford an extra, $20 here and there.
Well, most people that are worried about having a clear filter are people that are trying to get away with using a gas tank that was storing water for 10 years or something. But
Yeah,
Unfinished Project is asking what the element is made out of in that
s-
filter.
stainless steel. It's stainless steel, and it's got aluminum on the ends, and then there's a tip put on that, so that way when the fuel doesn't hit the end, it actually splits it and allows it to go around there. So, and that was really awesome too. Also, it helps set the spring when you're setting it down in there. Plus,
That's cool.
plus the tube opens up from both ends, so you can essentially, when you take this out, you can have it on left, so you can have just basically a tube straight through, and it's open to element on both ends. So yeah, you can clean it out really good.
Max Wedge Dick Dastardly's asking, is there a way to change control arm bushings other than pay someone else to do it? Well, I'll tell
Yes,
you what, I'm sure both Professor P and I, over the last 30 some years, have come up with our own ways that we like best practice for doing these.
100%. I changed my
Okay. So assuming you're talking about a Mopar on the upper, my method is I take a torch and I burn one of them out to where all the rubber's just torched away. Then the arm will cock over and I can get a good angle to just cut the thing. If assuming your camber bolts are rusted out, like a lot of them are, if they'll come out with a wrench, more power to you. Okay, the bushing itself, I take an air hammer and I smash it in and it just drops out,
yeah.
and then I support the arm and push a new one in. If you're doing it on a Chevrolet, I'll actually take the socket that'll just wedge in there to keep the arm from getting distorted, and I change it that way.
Hmm.
On the lower, a lot of times I'll just burn the rubber out if it needs to be, or a lot of times they're so rotten you can just knock it out with the press.
Yep.
But I get the bushings that come without the shell,
Yeah.
and then just clean it out. Use a wire brush and clean all of these stuff out of the metal shell. Leave the metal shell in the arm, and you can just press the new in.
Hmm.
That
I
to
do the
me
exact
is
same
the
thing.
way to do it.
And here's a little tip too: is if you're having trouble getting the lower control arm off, what I do is I'll take the nut off that's on the K-frame, and then I have a big long, just like pry bar. I'll put
Uh-huh.
the lower against the K member and the lower
Yeah.
control arm, and just pry it back, and it usually just pops it right out.
Yeah, just don't clamp anything on the torsion bars. I've seen
No,
people vice grips and stuff, and those stressor will ruin the bar because the bar is a spring.
it is 100% a spring, and they do sell tools that you can put on there that you're supposed to hammer them off with. But even those will mar it up a little bit, and I've actually ruined some torsion bars back in the day doing that. So that's why I just pop it off with a pry bar, and it comes right out. Really
Ones
simple.
that I've had that are sticky, I've put a bar in there and used the bar to hold tension, and then I thread another nut, not the nut you're using, but I thread another nut on the end of that pivot shaft so I can tap at it. And between the two, it'll work it out without tearing anything up.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Oh, and that rubber will burn out of there with propane. You're not using acetylene or anything. So you say
No,
before
yeah,
it's empty,
just the blue container, and
yep,
then the lower control arm one. You just pop that thing out, and then you just heat it around, and that rubber just basically comes out kind of like, remember the little the black snakes. When you have
yep,
those little,
yep,
that's
yep.
exactly what it looks like. And when it comes out, it's a little black snake, and
Now,
then you let it burn for a little bit, and then it just falls apart.
now, if you're trying to use the old school rubber because that's what you want to do, I've tried it and I've had mixed results welding the washer on there to give you something to press against to get that shell out of the arm.
Yeah,
I've had probably 40% of the time that works without a bunch of trauma.
yeah,
So if you
it's
can
about
get
40%.
the bushings that don't have the sleeves, in my opinion, you're better off.
I agree. That's the only way I'll do it, because to get those
Yeah. Oh
sleeves
yeah. If
out,
I can get it.
especially at this time. Back in the 90s, it was one thing, but now they're been in there for
Yeah.
another 20 years. Nah.
Energy suspension, PST, all of them sell them without the shells now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And they know that for a reason, because it's just the way it is.
Yeah, because somebody there actually did change them and said, "Hey, this is terrible."
Yeah. Twisted Mopar Garage is saying he doesn't run a fuel filter in a drag car. Obviously, on a street car, I would. Different is I control what goes into the cell versus not trust gas stations. I agree with you. I happen to on my cars run fuel filters on the drag car and on the street car. Um, but that's just my opinion. I just like them. But eventually, my car is going to be going to the Cookie Monster is going to go into fuel injection eventually down the road. So I might as well just have everything on there so I can and on a whim. So,
And
yep.
Max Wedge, follow up on that. He says he has a cheaper press. Max Wedge, Dick Dastardly. My press came out of the dumpster at Harbor Freight, and then I had to come up with the missing pieces. So I used trampoline springs and some bar stock for the bed. And so nobody has a jankier press than I do, and mine has done a bunch of bushings and bearings and everything else. You'll be just fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And you know what I made to press in on the upper control arm? I just use a 1/2 inch all thread, but I get the fine thread,
Yeah.
and then I just use the nut, and then just basically it's a washer that's kind of got a little cup, and I just press them in and out with that thing. It works awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See, okay, and then okay, so we'll move on to the next one here. So this is going to be in our fast line, and I actually have some notes here, and I want to make sure that I get them correctly because this is actually a Dave Trojan product, and so he sits right behind me. So we'll start with the intercooler right here. So this is an LSX intercooler, and it's for. Can you guys see that good? Yep, right there. Okay, it's a high ram manifolds. Now, what's good about this thing is that across this, from the top to the bottom, there was less than 0.5 psi. So that's half a psi of pressure drop from one side to the other. And it's a cross flow design. So basically, there's less velocity, so there's less pressure. Plus the delta when you're going from this side to this side, you're going to get a higher gradient. So it's going to be cooler going in, and then by the time it comes out over here, it's going to be a lot hotter. And plus, then you're moving that much more fuel through a smaller area. When you're doing a cross flow on this, you're going from one side to the other. Plus, it's a much bigger area, and it's going slower. We've always said when you're moving something slower, it cools better. Also, too, it works with the Holley high ram top plus our fast top. So you can bolt this in and right in between, and it's an awesome piece. And the biggest thing about it, like I said, is it's less than, it says here in the thing, less than 1 psi across, but when Dave was testing it, it was half a psi. So they just don't want to say that, but it really was. And then we're going to move on to this one here. This is our big mouth 102 millimeter electronic throttle body. Now, the biggest thing about this thing is this is designed for boosted applications. And it's got a high performance torque motor. It's an electric motor in here. Now, what this is for, why this is important is that it's a stable TPS on suck through. So if you're putting this, like say on a supercharger, all right, and you're sucking through this thing, and you get on the throttle and then you get off the throttle, what's going to happen is that sometimes you're going to get a little bit of a flutter in there. Also, too, at part throttle, you're going to get a flutter, and at wide open, here's one here. When you're at wide open, what's going to happen is when you're at wide open, and that's full throttle right there, the blade's going to want to do this number on you. And what's going to happen is that you're going to have a TPS that's slightly moving from, like, say, 90% to wide open. Now, on some of them, you can tune some of that out, but on this one here, it's not going to cause a code. A lot of these will basically cause a code. Also, too, some of them will stick. And Mr. Dave Trojan told me to say this. You're not going to kill kids on a school bus with this throttle body. So we tested this thing in high vibration. I watched this thing go into the oven, out of the oven, and just going cycle for days. We tested this thing, and it's incredibly strong. So it's an amazing piece. And like I said, it's 102, and you can orientate it, any direction you want, as long as this doesn't hit. and it's got your standard plug on it. Now this is a test piece, so it's got no parts in there. Plus, it's just got all of our test parts in there. So yeah, so that is the fast products that are coming out. Did
I like the
any?
casting on that too. No wasted space.
No, no,
They gave you
absolutely not.
everything on the interior.
Yes,
I
that's
like it.
exactly right. And it's not terribly heavy either, because I've seen some of these things that are incredibly heavy.
And it
It,
also doesn't have much obstruction from the shaft or the way it's attached. See,
that
look
yeah,
how little there is on that with it open.
yes,
I
exactly.
mean, that's about half of the factory piece of what would
Yes,
be in the way.
exactly.
So
And like
nice
I said,
piece.
yeah, it is very awesome. We've tested this thing, you know, awesome. And so here's going back to the intercooler. Now we tested this piece on the intercooler. Now, here's the big thing is that we tested 1350 horsepower at 20 psi, and it only showed with this intercooler and that throttle body, there was no variance on the TPS. Plus, it only showed 198 degrees across that temperature. Now, when you're running that kind of pressure, as far as like psi, the 198 degrees that's nothing. That is nothing. So it was actually really an amazing thing, and it flows. It's one of those things that I wish I could download what I've seen at test and show it to you, but from my brain, but I can't. So yeah, that's what Fast is coming out with this year. Where can I test these parts? In the real world, Shane, just let me borrow some stuff for a few months, right? The the thing about the 102 millimeter throttle body, though, that is really that's something that if you put that on, say, an engine that is not really can use it, you might actually lose power. Um, it's really designed for a big cubic inch engine, high RPM engine, or something that's running a lot of boost, just because of how the air is coming into the system at that point. So yeah, that's what we got on the Fast one, and we'll just keep moving on to the brand called. I should start a brand called Slow.
I like that.
Right. Um, and we've talked.
It'd be an LLC.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right. We've talked about these a few times. These are the lifters. These are the cartridge style lifters. These things are amazing. How they work is that you have essentially a cartridge that goes inside of your lifter. It clips out. It's got a high pressure chamber that's basically inside of the canister. This is your low pressure chamber here. Low pressure is relative to how much oil pressure you're running, and they work awesome. And DLC lifters. Now, obviously, right now, only available for small block Chevrolet, but I did ask Mr. Chris Potter. Chris Potter is the guy right now in charge of, he's the manager of the cam department there. And we're going to say sometime next year. That was the exact quote that he told me to say. So, sometime next year, DLC lifters for Ford and Mopar will be hitting the market.
I'm all about it. I've
Yeah.
got a build that is perfect for those.
Mm. Sounds awesome. Yeah, I like mechanical flat tappet lifters. They just work, They just work awesome. Okay. We got some people in here. Then we'll move on to I know we have Ford people in here. Where's all
Speaking
of
of lifters, will regular small block Chevy lifters work in a Pontiac? Dakota asks.
the oil band's in a different spot. It is on a Pontiac, they're in a different spot than the Chevrolet. Depending on the base circle and depending on how you're doing on the where it's sitting in there, it could work. It can work. Whether it's going to work 100%, that is basically up to your setup, base circle of the camshaft, how much lift you're doing, and so on and so forth. Pontiacs have them in a different area. Chevrolet, they're up here. They're basically at the top, and on a Pontiac, they're much farther down. So they'll uncover in a Pontiac because they'll come up and then they'll bleed out. Here, Dakota's timeout asking, The Isky anti-pump up lifters I've got in my Trans Am. They say they fit Chevy and Pontiacs. Yes, you can make a lifter fit either one. If you change the oil band, you can actually lower the oil band in a Chevrolet and it will still work as long as you're not running, like, say, a small base circle cam. But yes, it will work either way. Show that you're saying absolutely January 2nd on the DLC lifters.
I'm good with that.
Hey, look, I'm saying sometime next year. That's all I'm allowed to say. So
we've only got 366 guesses because it's a leap year.
Yes, that is correct. So we got one extra year, but as we get closer to testing things and whatnot, obviously you guys coming and watching this, you guys are in the inside loop here. I'll keep you guys posted on kind of what's going on, how testing's going, and so on and so forth. What I'm allowed to tell you. Let's just put it that way.
Kevin's testing on the DLC lifters is going good. He says so far so good.
Oh, he's running them right now. He's doing the small blocks. Oh yeah, dude, I'm telling you, they're amazing lifters. Amazing.
And all thrust, no rudder. He just wants to know if they have them for that FE with its terrible oiling system.
Yes, Ford and Mopar are going to be coming out sometime next year, and I believe the Ford might hit the market first, then the Mopar. But that's just a guess. There's no insight on that. I just think that there's still a lot of sanctioning bodies that allow. There's more people running Fords and Chevrolets than there are Mopars out there right now, and the rules are because of how they do the cubic inches. I think it's 362 or 63 cubic inches, so you have to literally get a factory 360 or a 340. It can't even be board 30 over on some of those.
Shane, so how long in the 90s did we have to wait for Mopar aftermarket in the first place? So I think sometime this year sounds really good to me.
Yeah.
And Pontiac, Dakota wants to know. Yeah, where would a Pontiac fall as far as the DLC lifter?
You know, I don't know on that one. Because here it's just saying Chevrolet, but I'll tell you what, I will find out and just remind me, and I'll write it in my notes here, if they're going to make one just for the Pontiac Olds, like the BOP, Buick Olds Pontiac type of deal, or if they're just going to make this lifter, they'll change the oil band in it. But I'm not sure on that one. I'm unsure on that one.
This crowd loves those lifters. So Fab Race Mod Repeats asking thoughts on them in an aluminum block.
I would do it with I would definitely a Bush. It's a standard lifter where the DLC coating is literally just on the face. So it's going to be the same as if you run aluminum block, but if you're going to run aluminum block, I definitely would copper it. I would definitely put a bronze bushing in there or a bushing in there of some sort. DLC lifters for Pontiac. I don't know. Once again, I will find out. I don't know, have any answer on that right now. Okay, going on through. Now that Andy's in here, let's talk some let's talk Ford. Let's talk some Ford language. And let's specifically talk about the Godzilla. So right. So here's what we have. We have the STS 102 millimeter intake manifold for the 7.3 Godzilla engines, and I'll show you a picture of it here because I need this one for my notes because I can't remember all this stuff. That's the reason why I have things. So this, can you guys see that good? Here, let me fold this around. Sorry for this. I tried to download all this stuff and take pictures of it, but it just didn't come up that awesome. So this is your XTS 102 millimeter intake manifold for the Ford 7.3 Godzilla. And here's what it really features is that it features a shorter than stock tapered runner. So it's not just a tube that goes from essentially here into here. This is a taper. This is kind of like a tunnel ram. This is knowing how that works. It works awesome. And then we use the plenum underneath and then it comes back up. So it is much, much shorter. Now it's designed to run with 102 millimeter throttle body, like we just talked about, right? That will fit on it. But if you just want to run a stock throttle body, because this will fit inside factory truck, hook up with all the stuff that you have currently. You have to get the 85 millimeter piece at the bottom down here, so that way you can put that and put your 85 millimeter orientation adapter on there. And it works awesome. It works incredibly well. Obviously, too, we have springs. And if you're selling springs, there must be something else you're selling. We are selling camshafts. So we have on the stage one. Now, the stage one, there's no limiter, there's no tune, and no springs required. And on this one here, you can utilize the phaser in full sweep for excellent mileage, optimizing performance without compromising durability, works without limiters, and needs no adjustment to the factory phase camming, ignition timing, minimal ECU tuning, may be required to meet max potential. It took us like 10 minutes to get this thing up to running well. It made over 60 horsepower and 15 foot-pounds better than stock. Specs on that one is 217 on the intake, duration of 50 to 29, and it's on a 121 lobe separation angle because remember it's wide. Now these things have, as far as sweep on them, they have 52 degrees of cam phasing on these things. 52 degrees.
52 degrees?
That's a 5 and
That's
a
crazy.
2. 52.
Oh my gosh.
We do sell cam phase limiters for these, and that limits down to 20 degrees. 20. That's still a lot, right?
How many teeth is that jumping on the timing chain for those of us with less sophisticated engines?
That's like 4. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So then we have stage 2. Mr. Stage 2 is, now this is going to be the cam that I would tell everyone to get. Stage 2, this thing made over 600 foot-pounds of torque, and it made 592 horsepower. This is amazing. We used our 102 intake, the intake manifold up with this and the throttle body. It takes the springs. Now, on this one here, you need to have, you can tow with this, believe it or not. You do need the cam phasing limiter with it, so that way it's 20 degrees of sweep. And this thing made like 75 horsepower over stock. And the reason why I say this one is the one for everyone is because when you see the specs for the next one, there's a reason why I don't recommend that one for everyone. This one is 221, 231. It's on a 112 LSA, and this thing's got 600 lift at the valve, 598 on the intake, and 607 on the exhaust. Now, there are special lobes on this to run these because it's got a 1:8 rock arm ratio on this thing. So you have to make sure that you're opening them slow enough so that way you're not deflecting anything. There was a lot of thought put into this. Then you have the Stage 3, Mr. Stage 3, the Beast O Master. Now this one made over 600 horsepower, but you're going to give up some torque on the lower end. And the reason why is this one is 237, 250 duration at 50, and it's on a 117 degree lobe separation angle. Now this is all with factory pistons. We didn't change the pistons, so all these fit in the factory pistons. This is just with literally the factory heads, that intake that I showed you, these springs, and these phaser lockouts. The reason why I don't recommend this for everyone is that with that 671 lift, you're really going to need some sort of head porting because these heads flow amazing. They have great velocity, but they literally go up to a point and then they just plateau. And that's where they're at. We flowed the head so we knew where to lift these things to. It wasn't just a willy-nilly, hey, so a cam in there, make some power. So you really need to get some head flow to get the max potential out of this. We didn't, and we still made over 600 horsepower with stock heads. So if you really port these things out, there's another 100 horsepower. Plus, it's really for boosted applications. So for that one, I got to tell you, that's an incredible engine. Then to make 600 horsepower with the Stage 2 hydraulic roller, it really reminds me of like the Gen 3 Hemi and how it works. The Gen 3 Hemi, you can with a stock type 6.4 intake headers, and this was run with headers too. And with the Hemi, you could put a camshaft in it, and it's making 600 horsepower right off the bat, 6.4s. So this thing has got so much more potential than that because of the cubic inches. And this is literally in factory form, where the Hemi, you're limited on because of pistons. Pistons will give it the ghost. This thing's got forged pistons. This thing's got awesome rods. It's got a steel crank in it. the bottom end is built like a brick shit house. The thing's incredible. You could easily make over 1,400 horse on this thing, literally in factory condition.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Was there any any questions I missed?
Well, One-Eyed Cat has a question about rebuilding a 1920 Holly, but I think he's just asking who here likes rebuilding 1920 Hollies.
Oh, they're simple, man. They're really easy.
Dom, we can talk about that because I'm sure I'll be seeing you here pretty soon, actually.
Yeah.
But Couchy's asking, I think, a good question here.
What's the timestamp on this?
At 8:44 about cranking PSI compression.
Okay, good. Thank you for not calling it dynamic. Thank you for that. 844. Okay, right there. So somehow the hot rod engine has 100 psi cranking compression. Oof. Do you think I could get some KB pistons and run? Now, what engine is this? Do you know?
Yeah, I think there's more info needed to be had there.
Yeah, so here I'm actually dealing with something like this, but it's on the other end of the spectrum. This engine on the Slant 6 had 175 psi cranking compression, 160 across the board, but it had like 7.62 to 1. So you can typically make that up with a camshaft, but if you've got 100 psi cranking compression, you might have a camshaft that's either degreed wrong, where it's super retarded, or you don't have enough compression for the camshaft that you're running, or just too big of a camshaft. Yeah, I need a little bit more info on that one. But it sounds like it's great set up for 25 pounds of boost.
Danny Boyd says you've never done a one barrel. Have you never done a lawnmower carburetor?
Yeah,
I think we've all done. I've done mower carburetors in the middle of the yard.
Oh yeah, right. A little wrench, just take it off, blow it out, throw it back in there. Yeah. I actually rebuilt one with my hand. I got it fired up, and I went full throttle, held the governor, and then just put my hand over the carburetor. So basically just cleaned it out and held it wide open. So it just sucked all the passages, cleaned it out, and the thing ran great after that. I was like, good.
Nice. Andy's wanting to hear about those 440 CFM Gen 3 heads.
Yeah, okay.
I bet you are.
All right, let's move on to that. Oh, you know what? Let's go to one more before we get to that one, because I even told John that before we started, everyone's going to be asking about these Gen 3 Hemis.
He's going to slow roll it, Andy, just to torture you.
I'm going to slow roll. It's going to be the highlight. So I did that just for you, Andy. You're in here, so that's why I skipped to my Ford section, because you're the Ford guy. So trying to make all my viewers happy, in little special ways. So here we have some new crate engines coming out. Crate engines, you say, oh man, what are those? Okay. What's cool about these things is that is the power and where you're getting them from. These are all Edelbrock, and it's all brand new parts. These are not rebuilt. These are brand new engines. And these things are making like 410 horsepower for the carbureted and 430 for the small block Chevrolet, and that's for the fuel injection. That is for the 350. The 383, I don't know if you can see that, sorry, right there. The 383 is making 480 horsepower on the carbureted, and then 500 on the fuel injection. The reason why there's a difference in horsepower is that the 383 480 horse right here, that's a Super Vic intake. And then this one down here for the EFI is running a Vic Junior. So that's where you're gaining the extra 20 horsepower. Same type of thing with the 350 here. This is an air gap RPM, and this one right here is a Vic Junior. And that's the reason why you're getting them. And if you notice where the power ranges are on these are slightly different as far as where the torque's at. And that's just because of the intake. And then the bigger intakes with the fuel injection just allows you to RPM a little harder. Plus, it make them a little more drivable on the street. Or carbureted, it gets a little funny when you got the big intakes. It's either one or the other. With fuel injection, you can kind of fudge it. And these things are, there's a lot of brand new parts in there. I mean, these things are just awesome. And then, believe it or not, small block Chevrolets are still very popular engines. I was rather shocked. I thought the LS was LS swapped the world, but these things are awesome. They're really good built engines, and they've got really good pans on them. The 7-quart pans, everything's brand new on them. So yeah, ARP bolts, forged I-beam rods, exactly what I like. I'm not an H-beam guy, whatever. Unless it's just a higher RPM NA type of engine. All right. Anyone coming back? Oh, here. I found a 1403 Ettelbach 47. Had to be a scam. You know, I got to tell you that there's companies out there that are there's some people reproducing Edelbrock carburetors, and they're painting them silver, like rattle can silver, and putting an Edelbrock sticker on them, and literally trying to pass them off as ours. And that's the truth. I'll bring one in. I'll show you guys.
You got a counterfeit one that's been confiscated.
Oh yeah, and
nice.
Dude, they turn them in thinking they can get a refund. Literally, like,
man, that's dumb. That's,
yeah.
No, I think my favorite refund scam ever happened at my local O'Reilly. A guy tried to return a radiator to get a refund, and he brought in the box the radiator came in, and in the box was half of a flat screen TV. Obviously hoping they wouldn't open it, but
yeah. And then let's see here. We're probably gonna save something for last here. Obviously, I've talked plenty about the VRS carburetor, so obviously we're bringing that out. We're gonna have some part numbers coming out. We have right there. Can you see that right there? Yep, right there. 650, 750, and the 850.
yeah.
Yep. So 850 testing is done on that one. We have it on the Hoopty. It's basically our G body with the big block Chevrolet in it. It's like 555 cubic inch. The thing's awesome. It's so much fun to drive. It's bitching. It's got an 850 on it, and it just I really should have brought that thing too. No Name Nationals. So and let's see what else. Did anyone ask any questions here? Going through this. Nope.
Dumb crook news. Andy, there is no limit to the stupidity of some people, and crooks get to showcase it more often than honest people, I think.
If they spent just this much time into actually doing something legal as they do into do something illegal,
yes,
it blows my mind. It's like you just sit around and think of how to scam people. Just put that energy into like making money. You'd make a ton of money.
Really. Tom Brown wants to know where we can get a copy of that catalog.
I don't know. You know what I'll do is I will take pictures of it, and I'll take pictures of it on each one, and I'll put it on my YouTube, on like a story. How about that? Would that work? I guess. Cool. Yeah, I could try something like that. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to post it, and I'll find out. I really don't know on that one. Like I said, I'm just a stupid engineer. I couldn't tell you. Now let's move on to what I've done, and then we'll get on to the meat and potatoes. Okay. So here's some of the stuff that I was actually testing at No Name National. So obviously we're talking about the transcooler. This is for the Dodge 8HP 70 applications, Chargers and Challengers specifically. And this is literally a bolt-on unit. The cooler block right in here, right there, clips right into your factory lines. And then we're running them in parallel with a cooler that goes into the front. It goes right below the bumper guard. The two brackets here and here bolt right into the existing bolt holes there. So we did this installation taking off the front clip. It takes about 20 minutes. Putting this in takes about another 15. The hardest thing is filling this thing up. Is because you got to fill it up from underneath. There's a port underneath. But other than that, it's an amazing unit. That whole time I've been driving this car, I've never got over 180 degrees, and you'll see why. We have a brand new converter for the 8HP 70. We have the stage 1, the stage 2, and the stage 3. The one that I happen to bring to the Nationals was the stage 1. This is a twin disc unit and is much smaller than the factory unit. It weighs probably about 5 pounds less, so there's less weight there. It is an awesome unit, and it works. This is how the factory should have done it from the beginning. It works just incredibly well. And if you ever rode it, in fact, I gave Dallas a ride in it, and when Mr. Cope gave my boy a ride home from the Throttle place, what's the name of that place again? Lambert's. That's right. Yeah, Lambert's. Yeah, he's like, this thing's got some good pull. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm testing things. I can't tell you, but we're testing things. So yeah, it's an amazing converter, and it's going to be very inexpensive for converters. Most of these things are, you can get converters like right now for the 90s. They do sell some for the 70s, but the 70s are like in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. This one is definitely not going to be in that range. Once again, I don't know prices. I'm just telling you about the products. Then we get to is tall
Garage Ken, are you here?
I'm looking to see if I've seen him. Is Tall Garage here?
And while we're waiting for Tall Garage to resurface like Beetlejuice,
yeah, right.
Evans Mopars does have a question about a cam recommendation. If you want to just touch on it.
Is this it right here?
Yeah.
Acquired a rebuilt 383 short block, and I want to play with it. It has a forged crank, 60 over TRW, high dome compression pistons. Needs a cam for it. I would like to go tunnel ram. Any recommendations? Yeah. Honestly, the cam that we have in our 383 is literally this setup right here. I'll read you the specs of the engine, because obviously there's a lot of things that are kind of left out here. But so this thing here is, what are we at as far as compression? This thing is 10.4 to 1 compression ratio. So you're probably going to be in that range if you're going to be doing this with the high dome. And hydraulic rollers. Did he say what kind of camshaft he wants? No. Because I would definitely need to know if it's going to be a hydraulic rollers. The only way I'd really go is if you're going to be doing one of these things, because they're really inexpensive nowadays. I would be I actually have it setting right here for the cam specs for these. And give me 1 second. I would go with, on the cam specs on this one is, where are you at? This one is duration at 50. On this is 234, 235. And this one is sitting on a 112 lobe separation angle. So it's funny because Mopar Guy 111, I almost told him the exact same ones. And this was designed by Mr. Billy Godbold. Can you see that right there? Right there, Godbold Industries. Yeah. Yeah, Godbold Industries. So he's the one who designed these cams for these crate engines. And then the smaller engine, which is the 350 crate one, that one is 216, 217. Now, it doesn't sound like there's a lot of difference in duration there, but we're making that up in as far as ramp rate, lobe, lift, and how it's going over the nose. And you're getting a lot more area under the curve. And this one is also on a 109.5 lobe separation angle, so 110. And that's for the 350. So what I would do for you is I would go 234, 235, and I know that cam and that setup made 500 horsepower. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what I would go with right there. Because if you're anything over like in the 270, even the cams that I have in my recipes, they're right in this range, 235. I think it's 238 on a 108, but that's for a specific application, or a 110 LSA. But anytime you're going to have something over that, as long as you get in that 230 range, that's a good rule of thumb. You can't go wrong there. Or you really can't. I must have missed.
The tall one has surfaced.
Mr. Tall One. All right, Tall One. Here we go. Where are you at here? Okay, I had something here. So there was something posted a couple of weeks ago. Tall Garage was talking about what kind of overdrive he should put behind his, Frankenstein 300 with the LS head, the guy who basically made it all before anyone else. And so here's what I would do. We have a it's called the 4X. It's essentially a 4L60E, and you can put a bell housing. So I've designed a bell housing that will go and bolt to a small block, basically Ford engine. Well, and a 300 is the exact same thing. Now, the great thing about this is this will accept a factory stock style converter. And so you're going to get the bell housing and the flex plate, and it will run your stock style starter. It's also going to come with a dust cover. So you can essentially, with this kit, which is going to be the bell housing, the dust shield, and the flex plate, go down to your wrecking yard, pick up one of these things. And then we also have the new trans controller for, guess what, the 4L60E. And it's awesome. And it comes in a couple different flavors, 4 different flavors. The one I would get is the carburetor application. It's 382113. So you can program it, you can tell it exactly how to run, and this bell housing was designed to go 650 horse and 500 foot-pounds of torque. Now, I can tell you personally, I tested it well beyond that, just so I could cover my butt. But I actually have one right here. So this is what it looks like. It's a nice unit. Yeah, got a little TCI right up in there.
And you designed that?
Oh yeah,
I can tell because it's got all the things it should have, like really thick tabs, got the reinforcement ribs where it should be.
Yeah,
it's got all the little stuff you look at a factory piece and wonder why they didn't do.
Exactly. And then it's counterweight, it's countersunk inside.
Yep.
Now we're going to sell this. We're more than likely going to sell this with new bolts that go on the inside, because when the ones that come off are like a Torx head, and they tend to strip out because they're in there really tight. So we're going to sell this thing more than likely with a button head type of nut or a factory style bolt. But yeah, it's an awesome piece. And the one thing I really liked about it is that where the bell housing's at right here, where the starter goes in, you can run a stock starter or a high torque mini, and it bolts right in. So there's no change in the starter. Literally is in the factory position. And I have an awesome little video that I made, and I just queued it up just for all you guys here. And this is actually, we had a 427 small block up on the bench, and I did a little video, and we're going to go full John Wilburn here. And here. So look at that engagement. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the bell housing in action. I figured I'd let you guys see it because I'm the one testing it, so why not? So it works amazing. It literally is an amazing piece. So Tall Garage, if you're thinking about running a overdrive, I would say look into this. As long as the bolt pattern is the same, it goes right on, and it's the way the factory should have done this thing. And in fact, what's really cool about this is that we got some new. This is a test product, and can you see on here? It's a 3D printed aluminum.
Huh. I can see that. I can see the striations.
Yeah. Exactly. So what's really nice about that is that we can do running production changes for prototyping. So we don't have to make these $100,000 molds anymore. We can literally make a change on the fly and just do it.
So is it just powdered metal? Is that how 3D prints?
No, it's aluminum. It's molten like aluminum. And it's putting in molten.
It's doing this with like an electrolysis process, or how is it applying the machine? Does it do it?
It's in California, and I haven't been there yet.
Oh man!
So I will find out more about it. But yes, it is.
Wow!
It's a pretty cool thing, and it's just as strong, if not stronger, than casting aluminum, because I've put it through its paces. And I was able to knock off 5 pounds off this thing because I reinforced it for a pour, like aluminum pour. And then when we got it, we got this one. I was like, man, this thing's way overbuilt. for this type of aluminum. So I was able to take 5 pounds out of this thing, to save, metal, because of that, the way that thing works. So, and this thing's not heavy at all. It's
But
really
I'm
light.
looking at the finish on that, and that is finished because I can see the striations. Like you haven't cleaned that up at all.
No, no,
You
no,
can
no. This,
you can tell that's exactly how it comes out of the printer if you look close.
yes, exactly.
Jeez.
It's exactly how it comes out. And we ran this through. Yeah, there you go. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
You can
I'm
see it
I'm
right there.
glad you didn't tell me that at first because I was kept looking at that thing thinking, wow, that's a pretty clean mold. And it's like that's exactly what I was looking at right before you said that you had it printed.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Look at that.
And this has been on an now, not this particular one, but
Right.
this has been on engines and turned things over. It's awesome. So yeah, it's good. If you look at the porosity, there is none, because it's a print. It's so much better than like a pour, because in a pour you're going to get some sort of, especially when you're running the thick pads, 750 thousandths pads, and this one here is 600 thousandths of thickness here on the inside. So it's strong. It's plenty strong.
Tall Garage says now I just got to talk someone into building him a 4L60 so I don't end up with 5 neutrals.
Honestly, I looked into that also for you. A 4L60 is designed for a truck that makes like a 5.3. They make about 370 to 400 foot-pounds of torque and about 350 horsepower, which is about right up where that 300, I guess, is going to flow, because you figure the cubic inch of that thing with the head flow, 2 less cylinders, it should make about the same amount of torque. I don't think it's going to make about the same horsepower, but I believe I believe it's going to work.
I would at least do a shift kit in that
Yes.
4L60. I think they
Yes.
could really benefit from that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, so let's move on. But yeah, that's
That's
the
really
stuff.
cool.
Yeah, dude, I gotta tell you, man, that was,
Now,
what's funny about that too is that when I was presented with this, they're like, hey, what does a TCI bell housing look like? Because there's always those conceptual ideas, right? And I'm like, well, look, I'm an engineer. Okay, so you give me parameters and let's work on it. There was a couple that were very, very hard to meet. A small block Ford, there's a couple bolt holes. This bolt hole right here, and obviously on the other side, you're constricted, and they wanted it to run with the factory 14-inch converter. So there is not much room. Once you do that, once you run a factory 14-inch converter, because the idea of this thing was, so the person who wants to put a Ford in a Ford, Ford engine in a Ford, but they want that overdrive. The 4L60 is going to be our brand new 4X. It's going to be for like an entry level guy or a cruiser guy or hot rod guy who wants to go out and drive and get that overdrive. And then you can run like, say, a 373 gear, because with that high overdrive, you'll be just fine.
so do you think in our lifetimes there will ever be a different transmission that same bell bolts up to, like say a torque flight?
Well, here's the problem with like actually making something that will go to a torque. So you're
Well,
using a torque plate.
you use the pump bolts like the Ultra Bell does.
Here's the problem with that, is that we all know that that 3-speed transmissions are getting harder and harder, especially the torque flights and the 904s. If anything, well, there's things I can say and I can't say, but I can tell you that 3-speed transmissions are getting harder to find, and they're getting a lot more expensive, and the ones that you're getting are a lot less rebuildable, and you got to buy them a pallet at a time.
Right.
So
the cores are getting lower quality.
They look like they've been at the bottom of the Baltic Sea.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Before you would get a pallet where it would have 8 transmissions on it, and one of them was not usable, but you could still use some of the parts, so you would actually, scavenge through them. Now it's like there's only 1 or 2 that are rebuildable. The rest are just essentially parts or a shell or a case. And in 727 land, that literally is the output shaft and the tail housing. That's So it's getting to a point where their 3-speed transmissions, you have to find other alternatives because they're going to go away by the dodo bird, if you understand the reference there,
Yeah.
uh, soon enough. Big block Ford guys. Fab. Oh, where is he at? Right here. What about the big block Ford guys looking for, dude? At that point, I don't know on that one. Like I said, I'm just an engineer. There's a product manager that he basically sees what's out there, what the market's driving the market. Small block Fords, I'm telling you right now, there are more people small block Fords. They're actually more popular right now than LSs, believe it or not. As
Wow.
far as what we're selling, yeah, small block Fords are very popular. I think it's just coming down to how plentiful the blocks are getting to buy aftermarket blocks.
Well, for good reason though. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a great place to work from.
it is because it's a low deck. You get a Windsor style. It's a little higher deck, but the whole structure of it is a very small structure. It's one of the smallest types of engines out there. It's very light. It makes a ton of power, and there's the aftermarket is flooded with stuff. So yeah.
One thing too I think is cool about a small block is it's physically narrower, which allows you more latitude to get rid of that bad exhaust side that Fords are known for. And
Hmm.
and the aftermarket has largely done that. So, I'm glad that the Windsor stuck it out because now it's getting its day.
Yeah. If anything, I would just look at putting a gear vendor on the back of it. That's what I would recommend. Gear vendor. When I was in San Diego, the gear vendor was less than a mile from my house, and those guys are cool, and they make a good product. At that time, I couldn't afford one, but yeah, they're. I would just look for like a C6 that can survive, and then put a gear vendor on the back.
Hey Shane, does anybody make an adapter to go from big block to small block Ford to small block Ford transmission?
I do know that. I do think we sell a. No, we don't sell. I don't know about that one. I
So
really don't.
so Fab Race Motor Pete, I'll tell you, very, very soon, you're going to be seeing that come out of Cope Racing transmissions. You're going to see a 4R100 E4OD with a manual valve body on all four gears, but it's going to be for the small block bell housing. So if you can adapt that up, you're going to have an incredible piece for overdrive for the big block Ford.
I think I think J&W makes bell housings for that kind of stuff because I
He does, you'll
believe
be
that
in business because, and Andy Wood's going to have one in his truck.
yeah.
I've seen Andy's. I'm gonna be seeing Andy's transmission in person in about a week,
Oh.
so it exists.
Tom Brown. Okay, yeah, he's saying the same thing. Gear vendors. Yeah, same thing I said. No comment. I can't comment on this one right now. Unfortunately, sorry. Taller tires. Yeah, you can go with taller tires. Um, small block Ford to the front. I got to tell you, man, I'm impressed with it. We have
Yeah,
that engine I was turning over is a 427 small block. The and it made some power. It made some power. I was rather surprised. So
that's right, Andy. You can. I didn't even think about that. That's right.
what's that?
They do make the E4OD for the big block Ford. The late run of the 460s, I think, had that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
In the trucks, right?
there you go.
Mm-hmm. Clint is. Can I transfer the guts of my aluminum overdrive A33 into a cast iron easily? Now, I don't know on that one, but I can tell you that I tried and I had a problem with one of the bearings. I think it's the bearing that goes into the front of the case for the idler shaft. I
Yeah, you're right. There is one bearing that's different. I've actually looked at that. But it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's not straightforward.
no, it's not. But you could probably get an adapter for it. Like I said, I tried, it stopped, and then life happened, and I moved from San Diego, and that project went away. So, yeah. Um, okay, going through. Yep. Okay, so we did that. So that's the stuff that I designed. That's what I was busy with. Now I have other stuff that I was working on, but those are the big things that I did. Cooler, converter, and bell housing. And the bell housing is an awesome piece. I've been
How
working on that.
cool is that?
Yeah, it's a good one. I was happy to get that. So, and then there's, I'll just since we're gonna end up on what everybody wants to hear about.
Hey, real
Yes,
quick on that bell housing. Have you
sure.
taken a test piece of that 3D printed aluminum and smashed it with a hammer just to see what it looks like when you break the
I couldn't
structure? Like
break
you
it.
take a test sample of it just to smash it and see what it does?
I couldn't break it.
I'm kind of curious what
Yeah,
the structure looks like.
I cut it, and it's literally looks like this. It looks when you cut it, it it's aluminum. It looks
Huh,
just like that.
wow.
That's on our CNC program. So this is our
Huh,
very first one. I'm going to keep this one. This is the one. This is our very first one that was made. It came to us, and this was the print. You know, like the first
yeah,
one, and then we used for all the setup pieces.
yeah.
But as far as the finish, I'll see if I can get it up to the camera here real good.
That's wild.
But you
I'm
see that?
assuming that's done in a temperature controlled cabinet when they print it.
Yeah, look at that thing.
That's just beautiful. It looks like a
Yeah,
casting.
yeah, exactly. It's if not better.
And
You
I'm
know,
telling
that's
you what, that opens up a lot of stuff right there.
oh yes, it
Way
does.
beyond that bell housing.
We're going to be getting to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm already thinking, that changes the world of cylinder heads and everything else.
It sure does.
Intakes, lots of stuff.
It sure does.
Hey, he's asked this twice now. Does TCI make a dual disc torque converter for the 46RE? He was asking about a 3500 stall dual disc for the 46RE.
I don't believe so. I don't think so because I would have had it by now if we had it because that's basically what I'm running on everything is a 904 and the A500. I believe it's just a single disc for those. That's all I got right now on those because we haven't really put any time into those because it really was kind of like a rebuild. We sell some of them, but it's not a hot market for us. It's not one of our big sellers, unfortunately.
Dust Devil's asking a neat question. Worried about his job. Do you still have to mill it after you print it? Well, it looks like pretty obviously it was machine finished, on your
Yeah,
surfaces there.
yeah. In fact, when I design these in CAD, we do a model, a molded piece first, and then we still mold it just like you would any type of casting. It's got 3 degrees of draft on it, and all the rounds have to be there, and then we take that and then we put it in, and then we do a machine print. So it comes. I'll show you the bottom because I didn't finish that up. But see how this right here is unmachined. So this is how it comes, and then right here you're adding about 125 thousandths ish on either side. So that way you can just machine it off and then you machine the inside of it. But yeah, it works really good, man. It's yeah, it's awesome.
Well, and Andy's saying that that's way more accurate to the casting, and he's exactly right. So imagine
Hmm.
CNC heads, right? Well, you're kind of getting that kind of benefit in the print process instead of having to make a mold that can shift.
Can I can tell you right off the bat that you can print this up to 10 thousandths of accuracy plus or minus.
Oh man, that's incredible.
Yeah. So
That's
that's 20
incredible.
thousandths of variance from zero, which is, that's incredible. You figuring that even 30 thousandths is about the best you can ever get for like a pour.
Man,
You can get 10 thousandths on this.
that's going to change the world with intakes. I can see it now.
Hmm. Oh yeah, because you don't have to have.
Well,
You can
no,
do this. It printed this thing out. It prints out 3 of these things in a day.
do you have any idea like what the cost is? Just the R&D and then the cost to go into the bucks and molds it takes to make one intake. That
About
cost is astronomical, not only in time but in money. And then they got to figure out how many people want to buy one to make it. So this really shortcuts that.
it's over 100 grand if you
Oh
to do a
yeah,
mold. Yeah, over
easily.
100 grand. That's just the mold. That's just the mold. It's 100 grand. Then you have
There is
all the
no
stuff on top
mold
of
for
it.
that. That skips the most expensive step of all of it.
Exactly. And the best part about it is a running change. And when we get to our next part, that's even the best part. Okay.
You change it a thumb drive at lunchtime.
Yeah. Well, you can just I can update it if they're having issues at the track, or say they're having issues in the foundry, or someone's hey, I want to port this where I can get a little bit more meat in this area right here.
Yeah,
No problem. It's
yeah,
done. The next ones start printing
yeah.
are fixed.
Andy sends you a text and say, "I need a little bit of clearance around this bolt hole on the thermostat." Professor P fixes it on his phone.
Right.
We're just about there now.
Colleen is asking if you couldn't break it with the hammer, any chance of being SFI certified? I don't know if we're going to go that route yet because the 4L60E, this is SFI certification really ups the cost on a lot of things, and this is designed to be. I never talk numbers, but the point of this thing was to be under $1,000 for bell housing, dust cover, and a flex plate, and I believe it's going to be well under that. So that way, anybody can get this, and they can just go down to the wrecking yard and get a 4L60E out of that. They've made millions of these things in trucks. You can just get one, bring it home, do a rebuild of yourself, and then put it in there, and you have an overdrive transmission for, literally under, $1,500 for everything, and then, well, obviously you're gonna have to have a controller on top of that too. But this, if you already have all that stuff, this is a very economical way to go, and that was the point of it. Okay.
My next project, while we're talking about, well, Dust Devil says no core shift, no porosity. He's in love because he's a machinist. I can certainly see that.
Yes,
Clay
and
there says that you can 3D print the molds if it becomes cheap enough to cast due to volume, which is a great point.
exactly how we do it.
You're right.
That's why you can make running chains. So you can 3D print them, and then in that way you can 3D print the mold, and then you can and that way a mold only lasts so long. Well, these things now, they are indefinite, so you just use the next one for the next print, and then move on. The next one for the next, and move on the next, so it never wears out.
Think about how they did the molds for engine blocks back in the 60s.
Oh yeah,
All the multi-piece molds, and they had to assemble this porcupine,
yeah.
and then it would have all the core shift and stuff. And
I still
now,
have I still have slant 6 blocks that still have the metal rods. Like if you have a three freeze plug slant 6, the two, like between number 1 and 2, and then number 5 and 6, it's hard to get those pieces of metal out, and they're stuck in there. So, but on a 5, you can get them out. You can kind of wiggle them out. But there's sometimes I still see the core stuff in it, and some of the sand is still in it from when it was made because they couldn't get it out.
Hey, Andy, you are not kidding, my man. You're already thinking of all the things that printer can do. Me too.
Yeah. Which is that? Where's that?
I just saw you said it's the biggest news of the year.
Oh, dude,
Oh yeah,
no,
that's huge
yet.
news.
Yeah, that's good. That's
There's
good news.
so many things that can do.
It's good news. It's not the greatest news. All right, so we'll move on to some cylinder heads here.
If a bell housing happens, the whole case isn't even that far behind. But I digress.
Yeah, so here's some stuff that we've had out. So yeah, the Victor CNC 11 degree 6-bolt Chevrolet heads for the GM LS3. It's an incredible head, flows a tremendous amount of air. Right underneath it, we have the Victor CNC, also 12 degree, which is a 6-bolt head too. Now, for the LS7s. Now, I believe these ones are going to be getting ports for methanol, which is like a direct injection. So that way they can run for the sprint cars, because small block Chevrolets are getting harder to find nowadays also. So they're moving on to the LS style for the sprint cars. So that will help. And then also too, we're making E Street 15 degree cylinder head for the GM LS Cathedral port and GM LS3 heads. A little bit more of an economical way to get a little bit more power out of them. These things flow. The numbers now of airflow is just incredible as far as what they can do. Back in the day, if you had 250 CFM, you're like, yeah. Now it's like 300 CFMs.
And First Responder popped up a question a little bit ago.
Sure.
Why does nobody but Melling make an oil pump for a small block Mopar?
Well, no. Kevco makes one. That's actually what I have on my on the Cookie Monsters is a Kevco, and the Kevco is a really good. It's got it. They're a little bit more expensive than Mylodon, but they have an integrated windage tray in the pan, with and it's baffling in the pan also. It's an incredible pan. I'll tell you what. After
Pump.
the end of this, what's that?
The pump, the oil pump.
Oh, 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 the
Yeah.
oil pump. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You know what? Honestly, because on the oil pump, there's really nothing to go wrong on those things. I've said this 100 times. I've had the same oil pump in my race car since 1990. I just keep taking it apart, blueprinting it. It works. It works incredibly well. You never have to replace your oil pump if you do it right.
Have you ever
And
broken the drive shaft on it?
no, never broke the drive shaft on it. The only thing I've ever done is, um, the bronze gear. I've had the bronze gear almost go away. It was about half of what was on there.
Oh
I was
yeah.
actually running a little bit too much oil pressure, and some of the bronze got stuck, and it stuck to oil pressure. So literally, it was pinned. And I was going down the track, and instead of relieving at like say 70 pounds, it literally pegged my gauge, and I thought my gauge broke, but it didn't. At the end of the track, I did a rev just to see if it could come back down, and at the end of the track, it decided to blow the oil filter. It overpressurized the oil filter. So that's the only time I've ever had any problems with it. But I took it apart, I blueprinted it. It's the same one that's back in there. So I don't know. I really don't know. They just seem to work. All right. A-body dash bezel. Right. I started messing around with creating a 3D print program for an A-body Mopar or dash bezel with a blank rear plate. Not done, but still working on it. That's awesome. Yeah, because I'm on my 68 Dart. That's gonna be our road race Dart. I'm gonna have no gauges on. It's gonna have a digital dash on it, and I'm just gonna make one so that way it's got a little. It goes right into where the factory location's at. Um,
Hey, hey
yeah,
Clay, when you say that's a dash bezel, what are you talking about? Like for your instrument panel?
yeah. I think that's what he's talking about.
What year? Because I'm kind of interested in that for that Dart Sport. Mine was just gutted when I got it.
What year's your car?
73, same as his, sir. His is 74, so same.
Oh. So okay, so we'll move on to let's move on to the Victor CNC 12-degree big block Chevrolet heads.
Nice.
These things are basically the big dogs on these things.
Those are brutes.
And this is basically this is an HIP system. What the HIP system is basically it's a premium HIP aluminum alloy. It's a hot isostatic pressurized. So basically, it is. If you want to read more about it than me, just giving a brief overview of it. It's in our catalog on page 119 and also on page on page 88 and 119. Basically heats raw aluminum to 900 degrees and then it pressurizes at 30,000 psi, and that's how it injects it for these cylinder heads right here. Is on the HIP system. So, and what that does, it just gives out a cleaner type of fill. And these things are basically designed for competition use, so that way they're moving the ports away. Chambers have been softened for massive power and just, whatever. And then the last thing on this one before I get to the main event here is the Victor 90 millimeter ProFlow XT throttle body. This is basically your standard operating procedure for 90 millimeter Victor style for the GMLS engines. This is basically what I'm going to be running on my Gen 3 Hemi, is that style, because I'm going to run a cable. I do not like drive-by-wire, just my preference. I like a cable. I want to when I tell it to go full throttle,
Right.
I want it to go full throttle. I want the computer to say, well, you really don't need that right now. We're going to give you this. And then we
Damien,
might
you're
give you
just
that.
in time.
What's that?
Damien, you're just in time.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so now we get on to the main event. Everyone's been asking about this. Performer RPM, this is actually on page 1. This is the very biggest one. This is the Performer RPM Victor CNC 6-bolt heads. We're going to release these in 2 flavors, the Performer RPM and the Victor CNC. So as far as cost, the Performer RPM, now I'm going to talk about 2 of these cylinder heads. And like on the Ford, I told the Stage 2 is the better one. For most of us, in fact, all of us here, the Performer RPMs are going to be plenty. They come assembled at $13.95 each, and the Victor CNCs are $19.95, and they're going to be sold bare. Now, everybody's talking about that massive. airflow on the Victors. Yes, very impressive. But you have to get over 650 lift to get that to that point. Now you're not going to really do that with a stock rocker. Stock rockers have an issue once they get over about 630, 650. They start getting on their tippy toe on the factory ones. So what we've done on these is that the valve angles on these things on the intake is 18.8 and the exhaust is 16.8. The ports are in the same location, so everything can be basically retrofitted onto this. Now, here's how we did on the port. Now, Jeff was working on this extensively. Jeff Cragnis, he's one of the engineers there. It was a raised seat, and they raised the pocket of the valve, so that way it's raised up. They also lengthened the valve, so that way they can get that radius there, and that's where they cleaned it up. It's also going to be a left and right hand head, so there's not going to be anything. And as you can see by the picture, the exhaust ports are going to be as such. Now, we're going to be selling on the Victors, I believe it's just the Victors, the 6-bolt. Now, you're going to need a special flange. We also are making these here because it's going to go around that to get into that flange. Obviously, you're going to need a block to run that.
Why left and right head?
Because on a factory head, you have a left head and you have a right head.
I didn't know. I've never worked on one of those enough to know.
Oh, yeah. They have, and what it is literally the pad here and the bolt pattern for these. See how it's got 1, 2, 3, and 4 for the exhaust. Right. On like say the right head will be here and here, and the left head will be here and here, so they're not ambidextrous. If you put it on the wrong side, you got to put on your exhaust. And the reason why they did that too is for the EGR ports. On the passenger side, you have an EG port that comes on the front. It's just so that way there's a left and a right. But this way they're ambidextrous. So since we're talking about head flow, this is off of the Excel file for this engine. So this was for this cylinder head. So now if you look at the flow here, the top blue one is this right over here. This one right here, right there, that's the CNC Victor head. This right here is the Performer RPM. But you also see this part right, it's hard to do this backwards, right there. The higher one there, that is the Performer RPM one. So it gets bigger velocity. Now that's going to be better for like NA engines and whatnot. But if you look at it, once you get to about, where's my numbers right here, about 600 lift, it kind of crests out. So for people like us, the Performer RPM is going to be the way to go. Plus it's economical, $13.95, and you're going to be flowing. I mean, it's still not chump change. That's 386 CFM.
Wow.
Yeah, that's the way it comes. That's 380. Think about that.
Just to contrast it, what is a W2 head?
Like 290, I think.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. You have 300 in the best iron head for the small block ever made, and this one's outperforming that by a third.
And if you look here at the port numbers, if you can see that right there, it's flowing 300 CFM at 400 lift.
Great day.
So that port velocity is massive.
Look at the numbers at low lift, though. That to me is what's amazing.
Because that sets up the velocity. So you're already flowing massive amounts of air, so that the port's already moving. It's an incredibly efficient port.
That's exactly what I was going to ask Andy. So those boss heads of Andy's as cast are 395.
395, yeah. So this one right here,
385.
Yeah, 385. So it's 600. This thing flows 385. 650, it's 386, 387, and 388. Now that's on the Performer. So that's why it's great for a person who's driving a car. You run like say a 630 lift cam, everything's going to be fine. You're going to lose about 20 thousandths in deflection anyway. So that way you're on the meat and potatoes of the head.
So you should be able to get 700 horsepower out of that
easily,
because that's
easily.
Yeah.
So now let's move on to the Victor. Now the Victor, that thing is flowing at 800 lift. So I'm sorry, 750 lift, 440 CFM right there. And we did this on our flow bench using a 4060 bore. So now a lot of these have 4090s, like say a four what was that, a 6.4. So it's going to be even better. We actually did it with a 4060, which is kind of like your standard, and that's a 20 inches of vacuum right there. Also, too, if you look here really carefully, we integrated rocker arm supports. Can you see on?
Yep.
Okay, we put supports in there. Now, here's the thing: is that there's a couple companies out there who make supports for these, but what we were getting is that it's not that they break, it's they deflect because the shafts are independent of each other. There was a company out there who makes a support that goes between the two. Well, this one actually uses the towers to support it, and when we test this thing, there's very little deflection uh, at high RPM. So, like, say you're going to 8,000 RPM. Now, the rocker arm geometry on a stock Hemi is stable to 7,500 RPM. I know, I've seen it on the Spintron. It's on a 6.4. With this one here, not only is it stable, but you're losing less duration at 50 at high RPM because your duration at 50 of your engine gets of your camshaft gets smaller with higher RPM. So you're not going to have any deflection. It's more rigid. Oh, and we're going to have dyno results soon. We want to just we don't want to just give it to you in one big, buffet. Let's put it that way. We want to give it to you in like little spoon feed you here and things. So, but I'm going to tell you right now that you're going to see some dyno results that are going to blow your mind on what this thing can do.
I bet.
Yeah.
I'm already thinking, yeah.
Yeah. So before I keep on going, did I miss any questions? Did I see here? Because I was reading as I wasn't looking. So
that's some really cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Yeah. And and the only thing that we did do rather than on factory that we changed is on the intake side, which is this one right here. This one is slightly up because the rocker arm geometry of the factory engine, because they all run the same rocker arms on these. It's not the best for higher lift, so we changed that slightly, so that way through the whole sweep you can use the stock rocker arm safely up to 650 lift, and it's going to be less on its tippy toe as it goes over the nose. When you start something up a little higher, you get a little bit more, and you can still keep the same geometry by just moving things. So that was all taken into account. Yeah. From bottom rocker arm geometry. Make sure I'm talking about. I have little notes here on everything.
Dust Devil says now I just have to figure out a tunnel ram for a 3rd gen Hemi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like where that's going.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm doing it on my own. I'll just tell you because it's not a project. It's a project I'm doing on my own. So on my own, I'm designing my own a tunnel ram for a Gen 3 Hemi. I'm just doing it on my own time. and so as I do it, I will tell everyone about it. It's nothing crazy, no one makes it. I mean, you could probably go down and buy one for Holly, but why would I use their stuff when I don't know how it was designed? I know exactly how it would be designed because I'm going to design it. And I know that we can 3D print stuff, so I can get something, flow it, check it, flow it, and check it. So yeah, and I'm going to make it so that way it can fit everything. So that way it can be like a Frankenstein. You can put whatever you want on top of it. You can put a big plenum, a small plenum. You can put a fast throttle body on top of it or whatever. It's going to be whatever I want it to be because it's going to be for me. So yeah, it's going to be cool. Here.
Just don't make a top to put 4 or 6 BBDs on there because somebody will actually do it.
No. Well, you know what?
You just had the same vision I did. I know it.
Oh, man. You know what? I was thinking about it. I would put one with like an Edelbrock, you know what I mean? One with like a Holly 1 barrel, so that we have like 6 different carburetors on them. They all come on in different stages, Yeah. Okay. Figure out turnaround for the yes. No. Already working on it now. And the reason being is that, and I never really said this before, but the whole reason why I'm going away from LA engines is because I was never able to get a block that was half worth of anything. Now I could get an R3, I could do this, I could do that, but who wants to spend $6,000 on a block and
It's
then use
crazy.
antiquated parts when you can go get a Gen 3 Hemi 6.4 BGE out of a truck that's got the best block? And I've cut this block open, I milled it open for them for the Spintron, and I saw how awesome that is. Just, and I've been messing with the oiling system on it on my own time, just finding out how to perfect it, and I believe I have. So now Dart has their block coming out. It was at PRI last year. I believe the factory block with the oil modifications is going to be just fine. That block's good to 1,700 plus horsepower, and so for $2,500, I can get this awesome block. I can get the Apache heads that flow right out of the box, about 340 CFM. You poured them for $1,000, but now we have these. I work for the company, so I'm going to have some awesome stuff, and you have a really great architecture that can take a lot of power, and it's a really good setup. It's got a good oiling system right off the bat. It's got everything that you could want right out of the bat. So that's why I'm going to Gen 3 Hemi, and that's the reason why I'm running nitros to this LA, is because I've said it before. If I run over the crank on this thing, I really don't care. I really don't. Just as what it is. I know one of you guys would be like, man, I would love to have that engine. Yeah, but you know what? I've always wanted to run fives in an LA powered Mopar that was, a factory block, like a truck block. That's a truck block in there. And that would be awesome to run fives with that. And mid fives, that would be even better. So that's where I'm at on that. Okay. Sorry.
Exciting stuff. I'm telling you, that 3D print thing,
it's a
that's
game
a
changer.
world changer, man.
Dude.
That's a really big deal.
Yeah, it is. And also too, you can tell on if any of you guys are at SEMA and or at PRI, I will actually be bringing in one of these cylinder heads here probably next week or the week after, so we can you guys can get a touchy feeling. I know it's coming through the TV here on your computer, but this way you guys can see it. You can actually physically see it, and I can rotate it, and you guys can tell me, hey, I want to look at this, look at that. As far as the ports go on this, and not only that, but just combustion chamber. It's got a softened combustion chamber on the CNC. So it's designed for massive amounts of boost. So that way it's not a flat, there's no squinch on it like that. It's curved and it's nice and soft for tons of boost and tons of power.
And by the way, Dakota was asking about what a softened chamber meant. And I'm assuming you're just talking about dressing down the high spots that could encourage detonation and so forth.
Yeah, all the stress
asked, and I thought if it comes up again.
Yeah. And also too, what a softened chamber is too, is that way you don't have like any squinch areas. So like an NA engine, you're going to want, like, say, if you ever looked at an Eagle head, let's just say on a 5.7 Eagle head, you'll see that it's not round like the piston. It looks like more like a football, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of oblong. And so you're going to have an area there where it's literally flat. And so you're going to have a squinch area there. So whatever thickness of the gasket is, that's going to be the thickness. So when you're running high boost, and you're in a high RPM, once you get into that squinch area right there, you could have detonation there. You could have a hot spot. You can have a lot of things. Softening the chamber literally just means moving that up and getting that away. So that way everything's coming to the center area. And so that way you're just taking away some of that stress in that area. Now, obviously, same thing is you're cleaning up. There's no like really crazy ports. There's no shrouding of the valve is really what you're trying to do. You're just trying to take away. Yeah. So it's awesome.
And I'll get the next question for you. Asks it. No, sure. Dakota, it's the amount of compression you lose doing that is so negligible. The gain that you get from doing that far outweighs it. Than that 0.0001 compression. Because that question is always what people say when you say you've taken anything out of the chamber.
And it's so negligible when you do CNC. If you're going from like say 58 to like say 59, it's literally it's nothing. And
for a better chamber, it's worth it 100 out of 100 times.
Dust Devil saying, I knew I saw that. Should I say anything? Look on Shane's face. Yes, I was debating because I was going to keep it to myself and then just kind of say, "Hey, look what I made." But you want to know what? Whatever. We're here. We're all friends, and this is kind of what I'm working on.
Well, this is the
Um,
place to come for that kind of stuff. This
yeah,
is this is
exactly.
the this is the intellectual tech talk of YouTube, and if you come here, that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And then you guys get this is all the stuff like what I'm telling you is what only the high execs of many different companies got to hear before the PRI. Now, obviously, with Facebook or what I call Racebook nowadays, it was all over with the CNC, but you guys only got like a satellite view of it. We can go into depth on this. It's not going to just be one time today. As things go along and as we go through the weeks, I'll be bringing these parts here so you guys can kind of look at them. I just kind of gave a brief overview of these, and if there's anything you guys want to talk about more, um, you can just ask me, and then we can go from there, and just and then I can bring it in and take a look, and hey, let's try this and let's try that, and I'll tell you if it worked or not when we tested these because we test a lot of this stuff to failure. We try to make it fail.
Like the 10,000 cycles on the DLC lifters, or
At
10
10
million,
million,
10 million
10
cycles.
million.
That's right.
Yeah, 10 million. And I there's more now on some of those now as far as cycles go. More than 10 million.
And first responder brings up a great point. Just get an actual bore size gasket, and that's more than 1 cc. He's exactly right.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There you go. More so
Yeah, I guess
so
so. Maybe.
more Hemi. Well, here's the thing about that though is that you lose some of that heminess by making it compact because the real Hemi is a spark plug here and you have a valve and a valve here. The problem with that is camshaft. You can only put so much camshaft before they crash into each other. Once you bring them up into an area like this, there's no area for the valve for the spark plug, so you just put them on both sides. Technically, it is a Hemi because it's there's a spark plug in the top of the dome. It's not in the exact center. The only really way to do that would be to make a floor valve at that point with that type of angle, so that way they're not crashing into each other. And that was the big things with the Gen 1 Hemi is that there was some overlap you just couldn't do because they would crash into each other.
If people like four valve, you know what? Whatever floats your boat, more power
Yeah,
to you. To me, two valve is just one of those things that cars, that's just me.
it,
I just think four valve is weirdness that I opt out of. That's
yeah,
just me.
yeah. And I like the sound of a mechanical cam,
Yes,
two valves, push rods. I just like to hear the
correct.
mechanicalness of it. I just like to hear the whole mechanical things going on. I think that's the best thing.
There comes a point when all of the cool things about cars, like for instance, to me, the experience starts when I grab a chrome door handle and push a button to get in. All right. That is where the whole experience for a car starts. So all of these weird little things that make cars less like cars and more like furniture for me, I'm not into. And so anyway, engines are kind of like that too. To me, there's just certain things that engines need to have. So I like this development that's going on for these engines for that reason.
Yeah. Mostly all parts and acids. So Shane, you figure out the shape of the Gen 3 Hemi tunnel ram, and I'll figure out to get it cast into aluminum. I've already got it. I've already got that covered. We're good on that. And I've got a pretty good design. I don't want to go into a lot of the technical on it because I've spent a lot of math on this. It's going to be one of the better style of ports out there for the Gen 3 Hemi, since the way that the Hemi since I have the model of the port, I was able to bolt this directly to that. And this is something I do on the weekends. This is not anything I'm doing at work. This is something I'm doing on my own time. And so I'm doing the port design is so that way it lines up exactly with the port on the cylinder head. So you can just bolt it together. And it's flowing incredible numbers. So
Hey, Patrick, if you were not in here when Shane talked about the bell housing for small block Ford to 4L60, you
back up.
really need to go back and watch that.
Yeah, really should.
Yeah.
Yeah. First responder garage. He's asking, does the soft port push more to the far wall of the combustion chamber? I would really like see liquid data where the mixture goes, cause it heavier than air. Um, yeah, to get that kind of information out and to put it on here would be hard, because I'd be kind of like giving away some trade secrets. But I can tell you, you can literally watch some YouTube videos on soft chambers, and it's nothing like that that's been hidden. I can't divulge what I know on it, rather than I can just show you on the ports how it looks, and whatnot. It's literally, it's just taking away the quench area and rotating it in and at a progressive rate, so that way it's not having any type of hot spots in there. Is all you're trying to do. You're trying to cut away all the squench, so that way under high RPMs. When I say high RPMs, I'm talking above 7,000. Um, you don't have any detonation, or under massive amounts of boost or massive amounts of nitromethane or methanol or nitrous, or things that can make an engine go boom.
Buff Del Campo asks a great question. What
Sure.
is the alloy on that bell housing?
I can't tell you right now. I saw that and I
Something that
skipped.
prints nicely.
Yes, I can't tell you right now. It's a derivative of T6. Let's put it that way. It's close enough to T6 that it's T6.
Yeah, that's probably a whole lot of that combination is figuring that out. So
Yeah, exactly. I can show you again how awesome it comes out, because that's
Patrick, I'm telling you, you need to wind it back and watch.
there you go. There you go. That's a
Patrick,
machine.
that was 3D printed.
Yep. Exactly.
Look at that.
Yep. 3D printed. And you can look at it right there. You can see it's 3D printed right there.
Within
And they
10 thousandths of an inch.
Yeah. Precision. And what's good about that too is that they can make 3 of these things in a day, in an 8-hour day. 3 of them.
That's just amazing to me.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who's been 3D printing parts in plastic for a long, long time. He's gotten pretty advanced at it, and he's made lots of little things for me. And we have always talked about what's going to happen when the metal and the process is there that you can make really good car parts. Because I know people have been fooling with the metal for a while now, but it looks like we're finally there.
Yeah.
And that's exciting.
Yeah. Man, that 2 hours went by fast, man. It's almost 9 minutes still. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything you want to plug, or anything you got going on, or what do you got going on this Friday?
Maybe I need to talk with Andy and see. I might have something fun going on there. Actually, he and I were talking about.
That must mean
I'll be going up to Lowell, Indiana, to the Cope Racing Transmission Skunk Works here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be bringing you some fun stuff from up there. And I think that you guys will get a kick out of it. So
awesome. On a separate note, I got my A500 transmission in my garage now, and I have an adapter plate for small block Mopar to slant sickness. And so I think I'm going to be taking some time off here at the end of the year, and we might have an overdrive slant 6 here probably by the first of the year. Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of questions here that I can't talk about, so I'm ignoring them.
Fab Race Mod repeat, hardest part of the 4L60 is putting a GM anything on my Ford. I get you, man. And this is why I asked him the question about making something like that goes to the pump bolts on a Chrysler for the same exact reason. Yeah.
No, I believe me. Look, I understand. But once you get to a level of performance,
sure,
it's, a Ford 9-inch.
Exactly. It's the same thing.
I have a Ford 9-inch. I have a Glide in my car, but it's Mopar powered. It's always going to be Mopar powered, but it comes down to a point where there's so much stuff for the GM that's just not there for the Chrysler. At 940s, 950s, the 904, you can only throw so many parts at it, and that's it. And that's what I have. I have everything you can buy besides an aftermarket case in my 904. Never had a problem with it. It's billet everything internally. Is literally billet. Everything's billet. And EN30B input and output shafts. I mean, it's got the best of the best.
Yep.
After 940s, if I put any type of power adder to it, I don't think it would survive. I think it would break.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. And that's where a glide comes in, is because now you've hit that power level where you don't need that extra gear. You don't need that multiplication.
I want to say, I can't remember what he's running, but I want to say Dennis Breeden is running Cope's quickest 904, and I can't think what he's running, but he's pushing that envelope right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's in that, top 1% everything we can get from the 904. But you're right, there comes a point when there's nothing more you can do.
Yeah, and I was getting close. Like I always have a safety margin, and that's why I have it at 940. I've seen people go into the low nines, I believe. Personally, I've heard there's always those people. I saw someone run, 890s, and with the 904. I've never seen that. Personally, I've never seen anyone run into the eights with the 904. But
well, bear in mind, there's always someone that has seen things that have never happened. I mean, if I had thought about it, I'd have had the picture ready on my phone. There was a guy on a message board. Every time Cope says that he now has a manual 4R100 valve body that's billet
Mhm.
on, there's always somebody says, "Oh no, there was a trans brake before." And this guy posted a picture of something from 8 years ago where this guy had this electric brake drum looking thing on the output shaft and said that was a trans brake. And so Cope, of course, sent one of those motorhome transmissions that has the drum brake on the
Yeah.
yoke. He says, "No, it's not." And so what I sent a picture of wheel chocks at Harbor Freight and said, "Hey, look, Harbor Freight's got a new line lock on the market." I mean, it's nuttiness. So whatever you say, there's always going to be somebody that's got a tale of something that didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that
See,
may well have been the same.
Patrick, I think we're talking about the same guy. This is the guy that I was talking
Yep.
about. 9.0s and the 904 has been doing it for years, because I was in San Diego, and I believe this is the same guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I've never seen anyone go beyond that, personally. But yeah, you have to have it really well set up. You have to have a very figured out car to run a 904 to that point. Tom Brown. Yeah, I think the person you're talking about
There
is
you go.
Will Cap.
Niagara Falls. That's right. We always say the inside joke is that those people are all from Niagara Falls.
Oh,
Niagara Falls Transmission Company, Niagara Falls Line Lock brand. That's our inside. If you've ever seen Cope and I say that, that's like the inside for its complete Bravo Sierra.
yes, exactly. That is him, Patrick. He's a friend of mine. He lives out in Arizona. So yeah, he's a good guy. So yeah, he's the fastest guy that I can know that runs a 904 and has it surviving. But it's a very well sorted out engine and car. Small block Mopar with W9 heads or W8 heads. I can't remember.
Cope, what is Breeden running that 904? That's a heavy car too. What is he running in that? That's a quick 904. It has an aluminum drum in it.
I got aluminum drums in mine too. Oh, I got extra ones.
You have aluminum drums in the one you had in the Cookie Monster?
Oh yeah.
Great day.
Yeah, they've got like $7,000 worth of just parts.
I was going to say, yeah.
Oh yeah. I've got and even the gears are billet aluminum. Yeah. Yeah, 9 flat. That's about the number that I've seen. That's about the number. Low nines.
That's the max effort 904 right there.
Yep. That's what I've seen. And my safety margin is 4/10. So I was running 940s. I could get a 940 out of a 904 safely in a car that I knew was well sorted out. And I could do that for a while. I would tear it down every year. I'll tell you that. I would tear it down, just inspect it. But yep. Yep, that's him. That's the guy. Yep. So, man, we're getting close.
Yeah,
man.
the time's gone by pretty quick.
It's gone pretty quick. So, I hope everyone had a good Halloween, man. It was the first year. I'm going to shift gears here. It was the first year that me and the wife got to sit and have a fire and just watched the kids come and trick or treat. And then our kids ran off and went door to door to door to door and came back with a big old bag of candy, and we didn't have to follow them this year. So that was amazing, you know.
So you have a good trick or treat neighborhood, don't you?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
yeah. It looks like one. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, that everybody sits out front and literally makes a bonfire, and they just sit out front because you're never going to sit down if you're going to be on the door. And we go through bags of candy. So, and people show up, and if you go up one side of our street through all the little chicanes and then all the little things, and you come back, it's a 2-hour loop, and you've only hit one part of the neighborhood, and it's a good walk. So
Cool.
awesome.
Right on.
Yeah, and Jay's Duster is NA. Yes, 100%. Jay's Duster is an NA Duster. It's an actual, I think it's a 70 Duster. It's an awesome car. Yeah, I just wish I had his block, because then I could make his power, but I just couldn't NA. So, anyways, guys, we're hitting that mark. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, we'll if there's anything you guys want to see more of about what I just released here, if you guys want to go back through anything they want me to touch on more, please send me an email, Shane, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, slantdailygarage@yahoo.com, and I'll bring it in, and we can do touchy-feely, and we can look at it, because I got all the little test parts, so we can bring it here, and you guys can see that. You'll see that nowhere else at any of these tech talks, especially one that's going on, probably ending right now. Yeah, they're just not going to have that kind of stuff. So just not. Anyways, all right, guys. Well, I'm about ready to go. I'm tired.
Well,
It was a long day.
thanks for joining, and thank you, Professor P, for the invite. It's always a pleasure to fill in for Dallas when he's got other obligations, and I was honored to be here and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. And I'm glad, man. You're always awesome to have Mr. John Wilburn, the bringer of the No Name Nationals, the guy, the reason why we're here. And I see an orange pad, but I don't see any numbers. There's no numbers yet. The countdown hasn't started.
But we're working on the numbers literally right now. I had probably a half a dozen phone calls that pertain to getting a number on this paper.
Okay.
So that's coming very soon.
Awesome. All right, guys, you guys take it easy. We'll see you guys next week. And until then, you guys take it easy. Thanks again, once again. Any questions, send them on over. You guys have a great week.
Later. Out.
Alrighty. You guys have a good day.